Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session of Debates in Contemporary Kalam. This is, I think, our 28th online conference, and we have two very special guests who will be joining us and presenting their piece on what is otherwise a neglected topic, I feel. I don't think we get much airtime for a topic like this. And the theme set for today is the power of love. We have two fantastic speakers from two parts of the world. First up is going to be Dr. Kelly James Clark. He's a familiar face. He's been on this series before. But just a quick intro. He's an American philosopher. He earned his PhD from Notre Dame University. He was under the tutelage of big philosophers like Alvin Plantinga. He has published extensively. I mean, if you go through his CV, you're going to be amazed about with the range of topics that he's discussed and written on. He's also very active in interfaith and interreligious dialogue. I was, in fact, part of a project, a 3-year project that was funded by John Templeton Foundation, and it was spearheaded by Kelly. So I'm going to let the man speak about the topic today. Kelly, the stage is all yours. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Shoaib.
No worries. Let me just share your screen so you can see the presentation.
Okay.
Right. So
right.
I'm just going to put it on full view. Can you just confirm you can see it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool. Yeah,
and
perfect.
You can just advance it when you hear me. There's one slide for every section of the paper.
Okay. Okay.
Just a minute. I have to get this a little smaller so I can read my paper, except for the introduction. So
okay.
Anyway, thanks to Shoaib and Mehmet and Enes for inviting me to do this. I've been involved in Muslim-Christian dialogue for over a decade now, and it's really enriched my life. And it's taken me into a topic I never thought I would discuss, the topic of love. But I think it's one that it's important for us to think about as philosophers and theologians in both of our traditions, because, well, we all know, for God's sake, we could use more love, not just understanding it, but also doing it. So I'm going to explore the nature of love in the Abrahamic traditions, primarily through a textual and philosophical analysis of what I call the books of love. And the books of love in the Abrahamic tradition include primarily, I will look at Hadith, in the Islamic tradition, but I'm going to primarily just restrict myself to the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, and the Quran. And I want to argue that there are deep similarities within the books of love on the love of neighbor and the love of stranger. In the United States, there's what I call the love wars, and you got them good. I can't see the PowerPoint. So there's nothing immune from religious or theological pride, and sadly, Abrahamic discussions of love are no exception. Christians tell a story of love, but they tell it for apologetic reasons. So they say something like this: while Allah may love, our awesome God, our Christian God, loves more and better. And then such discussions can turn into a sort of theological love Olympics with just one gold medal available. And I aim to dispel such triumphal Christian myths. This pernicious myth holds that Muslims believe only in divine justice and love not at all. Allah simply keeps a really good record of right and wrongs, and then justice demands a person's place in paradise or not, leaving no room for love. Islamophobia has dramatically infected Westerners' views of Islam, leading many to think Islam is a religion of violence, not a religion of love or peace. Unless you think I'm making the love wars all up, let me quote some not untypical Western Christian comments on Islam and love. By the way, some of these are from famous people. I've left their names off for obvious reasons. There is no love in Islam. The Islamic way of life is filled with hate, harshness, and rigidity. A Muslim cannot be a US citizen because there is no love in Islam. But everything is opposite of love. Islam is based on illicit power, sadistic control, harshness, death. Oh, you get the point. The emphasis in Christianity is on love. In Islam as a whole, it's on knowledge. And then finally, but love is the foundation of this universe and God is love. A religion that claims to be from God must have love as its hallmark. Devoted Muslims have their minds and emotions taken away. This is why they strap explosives on their own children. Knowing Jesus Christ is the only key to true love. There is no love in Islam. So here's how the narrative goes. Since Christianity, again, misunderstood, I think, is all grace, and since love is God's paramount character trait, Christianity wins. Or in a nutshell, Muslim love is just cold-hearted justice. For Christians, God is universal love. I aim in this talk to reject this dominant and I think dominating narrative. And I'm going to start with my own Christian tradition. In the Gospels, Jesus is asked which of the commandments is the greatest. And in Matthew 22, we read this really famous passage. An expert in religious law asked him, Jesus, a question to test him. Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest? Jesus said to him, love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these two commandments. Since the law and the prophets in its first century Jewish context was shorthand for everything that's right and wrong, according to Jesus, love lies at the heart of morality. Love is at the root of all that is right and wrong. We can deepen our understanding of Jesus' grounding of morality in love if we place it really firmly, as he did, within its ancient Jewish context. And this is the Jewish slide, Shoaib. In Leviticus 19, which the Jewish Jesus is surely quoting in the above passage, in parts of it almost verbatim, we hear the Lord speaking to Moses. This is a long passage, so I've had it put on the PowerPoint for you. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap your field right up to its edge, neither shall you gather the gleanings after your harvest. And you shall not strip your vineyards bare, neither shall you gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am the Lord your God. You shall not steal. You shall not deal falsely. You shall not lie to one another. You shall not swear by my name falsely, and so profane the name of the Lord your God. I am the Lord. You shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of a hired servant shall not remain with you all night until the morning. You shall not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind, but you shall fear God. I am the Lord. You shall not do injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. You shall not hate your brother in your heart, but you shall reason frankly with your neighbor, lest you incur sin. You shall not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the sins of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, which Jesus quoted in Matthew. And in this final verse in Leviticus, we get a sense, or I think maybe Jesus gets the sense, and so we should get the sense, that the command to love one's neighbor is a summing up of all those things in that passage that comes before. Loving one's neighbor as oneself just means leaving the extras in the field for the poor, being truthful with one another, neither oppressing nor robbing one's neighbor, paying wages promptly, caring for the disabled, and administering justice impartially. The Hebrew Bible then grounds all that is right and wrong, all that conduces to peace and flourishing, all that makes the world good and bearable in God's command to love your neighbor as yourself. Love in the gospel of Jesus and in the more ancient Hebrew Bible with which Jesus aligns himself is the heart of righteousness and peace. While we don't find the exact words, love your neighbor as yourself, in the Quran, We do find it or something similar to it in the Hadith, post-Quranic texts that are taken as authoritative by most Muslims. So we read, Anas ibn Malik reported, the messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, said, none of you has faith until he loves for the people what he loves for himself, and until he loves a person only for the sake of Allah, the Exalted. And the Quran, which affirms God's revelation given to Moses and to Jesus, likewise affirms the gospel of Jesus as the confirmation of the law. So we read in Quran 5, and in their footsteps, we sent Jesus, the son of Mary, confirming the law that had come before him. We sent him the gospel. Therein was guidance and light, and confirmation of the law that had come before him, a guidance and an admonition to all those who fear Allah. So while the Quran itself doesn't explicitly say, love your neighbor as yourself, it forthrightly affirms the gospel of Jesus. And the gospel of Jesus takes love to be the confirmation of the law that came before him from God's messages to the Jews. Moreover, we find in the Quran a list of manifestations of love, or maybe acts of love, similar to what we found in the Hebrew and Christian scriptures, very similar to the Leviticus passage I read. And from the Quran, be good to parents and to kinsmen and orphans and the needy and the close neighbor and the distant neighbor and the companion at your side and the wayfarer. Surely Allah does not like the proud and boastful. Sitting side by side in this single verse, we find God's command to show kindness to the orphan, the needy, and the stranger on the one hand, and God's denunciation of arrogance and pride on the other. How do you think these two apparently completely different commands are related? Here's a way to think about it. If one's heart is filled to the brim with one's fat, relentless ego, there's no leftover room in one's heart for compassion toward the orphan, the needy, and the stranger. So Allah commends the shrinking of one's demanding and excessive ego in order to create room in one's heart for orphans and the needy and the close neighbor and the distant neighbor. Only then, after reducing your selfish ego, can you love your neighbor as yourself. So while Christianity is often prized for emphasizing love, and Judaism and Islam are sometimes denigrated for emphasizing law, we find the Abrahamic books of love following the same path that God initially established with the ancient Hebrews, the path of love-grounded law. We likewise find love-grounded law in the words of Jesus and in the Quran's affirmation of God's revelation to Moses and Jesus. And we hear in each tradition that love insists on kindness and compassion and fairness towards one's neighbor, the poor, and the stranger. Similar messages in the books of love, the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, and the Quran should not be surprising if God, who is love, is the author of all three books of love. Correcting for differences of language and life situation, we should hear, I think, in different tones and timbre, a similar and recurring chorus of love in each of these books. And I think we do hear that in each of the books. We don't have time to discuss every Hebrew, Greek, or Arabic term commonly translated love. I'll focus in the rest of the paper on trying to understand what the Abrahamic traditions mean by neighbor love. What then is this Abrahamic understanding of love that both grounds and motivates acts of kindness and compassion and fairness toward kin, neighbor, and even stranger? And how are we to understand loving one's neighbor as one loves oneself? Let's take this first question. Who is my neighbor? In case your children happen to live next door to you, I take neighbor to mean non-kin. I like the way the Quran puts it, the close neighbor and the distant neighbor, and the companion at your side and the wayfarer. Let's let this passage from the Quran shape our discussion of neighbor. Some neighbors, of course, are close, part of our extended family or members of our tribe. Some of those close neighbors are like brothers and sisters. We delight in their company and accomplishment, for example, and we grieve their sorrows and we grieve their absence. For example, I have a great deal of care and concern for my next door neighbors, Andy and Sarah. I enjoy the time we spend together, and I miss them if we haven't seen them for a while. And I was genuinely delighted when both of them got promotions, and I was genuinely delighted at the birth of their two children, Milo and Ezra. Such neighbors for whom I have familial affection are what the Quranic verse calls companions. Close neighbors, companions like Andy and Sarah, with whom we have deep bonds of affection, are relatively easy to love. We don't, of course, have familiar bonds with all of our close neighbors. Some of those close but non-family neighbors, however, may have earned our trust through mutual benefit. My neighbor Bill looks after my house when I'm gone, and I look after his. We're not really otherwise very close. I don't miss him when he's gone, and I don't know much else about his life, but I trust Bill, and Bill trusts me. So we have a trust that's based on mutual benefit. I also have mutual benefit relationships with the shopkeeper, the garbage collector, and the policeman. I pay my bills or my taxes, and they provide their service. I trust them. We have a positive emotional connection then with most of our close neighbors, a family-like affection or an earned trust. Historically, close neighbors would have been members of your tribe, and members of your small tribe would have looked and talked and even acted a lot like you. You would have eaten the same sorts of food, hunted and gathered in the same sorts of ways, lived in the same sorts of huts, and worn the same sorts of clothing and body markings. Members of your tribe would have had the same sets of rules and beliefs, and you would have worshiped the same gods and in the same way. They'd all be a lot like you, and it's easy to love another you. Not always, of course. We all have that annoying neighbor who plays music too loud and too late, or whose dog won't start barking. And sometimes it's hard to muster up much more than grudging tolerance, let alone affection for those sorts of close neighbors. They may be close, but such neighbors are not what we would consider companions. Yet I can, by and large, trust them not to steal my car or enslave my youngest son. Close neighbor for sure, but not companion. The Quran is probably talking here about the sorts of near neighbor, those in my tribe, those a lot like myself, with whom I have a cultivated affection or earned trust, or even begrudging trust. All of the kinds of neighbors that I've just described. I should, the Quran says, love my near neighbors. What about, to use the fetching Quranic phrase, distant neighbors? Such neighbors are, as the verse says, distant, and I think in two often intertwined ways. They can be physically or emotionally distant. Historically, your distant neighbors, those from outside your tribe, would have looked and talked and smelled and acted very differently from you. While you might have looked or been genetically similar, their hair and clothing and tribal markings would have sent them off from your tribe. Their slightly different food would have made them, and cooking would have made them smell slightly different. You might think they stink. And while you might speak the same language, they would have a different accent and maybe use different words. And they likely would have had different values and beliefs, or slightly different values of belief. And they would have worshiped different gods and in different ways. And since they're not part of your tribe, you would likely have been in competition for likely scarce resources. And they may have coveted your large pile of food or your daughter or your spears. Your distant neighbor under such circumstances would have been a source of distrust and maybe even an enemy. Yet the books of love insist, love your distant neighbor. Physical and emotional distance can and do diminish our natural love response to distant neighbors. I remember a joke that made the round in the 60s. A parent tells her child to finish her meal because there are starving children in Africa, and the child replies, "Well, send it to them." Maybe I even told it or something like it to my parents. I know I told countless jokes about starving children. We all had a laugh. How could starving children be reduced to the butt of a joke? How could we laugh at the thought of starving children? We could laugh at starving innocent children because of their physical and emotional distance, because we couldn't see them and because we had no emotional connection to them. We lacked the kind of contact with them to sense or feel or see that they are our neighbor. Yet the Quran insists, all of the Abrahamic religions insist, all human beings near and far are our neighbors, and as neighbors deserving of love. Just as it is easier to love near neighbors because of affection and trust, distance and competition make it considerably more difficult to love distant neighbors. Distance and competition make indifference or hate considerably more likely. Let me sum up the teachings of the books of love concerning neighbor. We are, of course, called to love our near neighbor, the neighbor so close to us physically and emotionally that sometimes they're companions, brothers and sisters of another mother. Most of us would lay down our lives for our closest companions and their children. Easy. And we are called to love our near but annoying neighbor, a member of our tribe, community, nation, but one whose actions and beliefs make them hard to love, but we've got some sort of begrudging trust in them. The books of love insist that we love all of our near neighbors, whether or not they are companions, ones for whom we have genuine familial affection or trusting allegiance. They insist that we love all of our near neighbors, the annoying ones as well as the agreeable ones. But then they go further, much further. The Abrahamic religions insist that we love the distant neighbor. Not only should they not be the butt of our jokes, we should act in love towards them. Distance does not permit indifference to our distant neighbor, and competition does not permit hatred of our distant neighbor. We'll see it as we go on how each religion defines neighbor. At this point, we'll simply note that it includes, as the Quranic verse says, the wayfarer, and it also includes members of other tribes and nations, members of other religious groups, second-class citizens, the poor and the oppressed, the stranger, and even the enemy. The insistence of love. So we've just talked about neighbor. Now I want to come back to love. Let's sum up a bit. The books of love, the Hebrew New Testament, the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, and the Quran agree that we should love our neighbor as ourselves. They go on to define neighbor, as we've looked at, and they've given, they specified what acts promote human well-being. For example, giving food, shelter, and clothing to those who lack. Do those, the books of love tell us. And finally, and most importantly, the books of love teach the insistence of love. And they do it in at least two ways. God, who is love, insists on our acting for the good of other human beings. And the heart of the lover insists on self-sacrificial acts of love. Whether humans want to or not, God, who is love, insists that we act for the good of all humans. By God's insistence, I mean that God emphatically, firmly, and resolutely intends that we act at all times and in all places for the good of all humans. Even if you're tired or hungry or angry, God insists on love. Even if you despise the stinky beggar or hate someone from another country or religion, God insists on love. No matter what you think, how you feel, or what you value, God insists on love. You cannot, God insists, opt out of love. God's insistence is clear. Even if you don't feel like being loving, you must act in a loving manner for your neighbor's good as you love yourself. This is an external insistence. God lies outside of ourselves, outside of our structure and feelings and motivations. Outside of us, God insists, no matter how we feel or how we're motivated, that we act in love. But the books of nature aren't concerned simply with our action of love, aren't concerned simply with our actions. They're also concerned with what kind of persons we are, with the content of our character. The books of love not only want us to do loving acts, they want us to be or become compassionate, for example, and patient, generous and forgiving. And I take it all of these fall under the umbrella of love. So the books of love teach that God wants to refashion us so that we instinctively and habitually act out of a deeply felt concern for our neighbors. And this is our own inner insistence. By inner insistence, I mean a heart that emphatically, firmly, and resolutely intends to act for the good of all humans. But there's more than just a resolute intention. I think our inner insistence is different for different people in different stations of life and circumstance. I think my deeply felt concern for my children is and should be different from my deeply felt concern for my wife, which is in turn different from my deeply felt concern for my neighbors. And my deeply felt concern for my near neighbors is probably and should be different from my deeply felt concern for my distant neighbors. But the books of love want our highest acts of love to be motivated by a felt response to the needs of our neighbors, marked by, say, respect and empathy. Maybe compassion is the best term to unite being a person that respects and empathizes with others. The highest form of Abrahamic love is when we see our neighbor's needs and our hearts insist that and are not satisfied until we meet those needs. In the Abrahamic tradition, God insists externally on love, whether we want to love or not, but the books of love also teach that we should aspire to our own internal insistence of love, a rightly ordered heart, one that loves one's neighbor as oneself, a person who is compassionate, aiming always at a divine unity of empathetic heart and other regarding action. Shoaib, I'm going to skip the next section and I'm just going to go to conclusion. The books of love, the Quran, the New Testament, the Hebrew Bible, reveal in their own voices the insistence of love, to act on behalf of friends, the needy, women, children, the outcast, the poor, the suffering, the sick, the sinner, and the stranger. Moreover, the books of love tell us what kind of person a lover is. For example, self-sacrificial, kind, and forgiving. And although I haven't discussed it, the books of love connect loving acts and loving persons to a loving God. For example, taking God to be the ground of love, or the empowerer of love, or the example for love, or as the transformer of persons into lovers. And finally, love's insistence seeks to draw all people into God's reconciling and peaceful presence on earth and in the hereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly, for that wonderful presentation. So are we having a 5-minute break, Mehmet, or are we going to just carry on with Dr. Şaban?
No, it's not necessary. You can carry on right now.
Yeah. All right, okay. So with the first presentation concluded, I'm now going to invite the second speaker, who is Dr. Şaban. Just a brief intro about who he is. He has studied at SOAS, and he obtained his PhD at Ankara University. His research has focused mostly on theological work. His dissertation, for instance, was on Muslim theologians and philosophers and how their differences and similarities overlap when it comes to the relationship of God with the world. He has lectured at various universities, both in Turkey and outside of Turkey, and he has authored several articles and books on the broader topic of Islamic theology and philosophy. Dr. Şaban, the floor is all yours.
Shoaib, thank you very much, and I wish good evenings to every participant and the listeners. It's good opportunity to talk about love. After at least on my part, after serving and giving presentation on violence and Islam in NATO meetings for several years, after talking about violence and observing that violence is not a good solution in human interactions, and at least finally we have to at least discover the power of love, not just philosophical love or theological love, but at the same time it must be in political area also. Love, the language of love is required. I think not just theologically, we are searching love and its semantical analysis, linguistic analysis, and historical stories and narrations through the stories of the prophets, as we have seen in the presentation. Similarly, I hope some others whom we are sharing the life together, they will also refer to the power of love. So I will concentrate on the term love, how Muslim philosophers, theologians first defined the term, and mostly what is at most important for me is how God defined the term under various words like hub, mahabbet, or wud, vedud, or mawaddat, and mostly mercy. Mercy, as Dawood al-Qaisari, the most important commentator of Ibn Arabi, he gives the mercy as the leader, the imam of all other names of God. So Vedud and some other names of God, when we count, they are subordinate when we compare to mercy, I mean Rahma. So Rahman and Rahim, according to Dawood al-Qaisari, which I share his opinion in this regard, is the imam, is the leader of all other names of God. And in the beginning, I have to remind one methodological, at least two methodological, not one, approach to my presentation. The first one is that as from a theological perspective, from a religious perspective, we have to determine one guiding principle under which we will read, we will comment, we will try to understand the holy text. Not just holy text, necessarily that requires us to see all body of religion within this light. I mean, the guiding principle, for example, from St. Augustine onward, love is the guiding principle in Christianity. Love your neighbor. Okay, that's good. So what is we have to ask this serious question to ourselves. When we read the Quran from beginning to the end, what is the guiding principle which orients us, which guide us to understand the Quran? Is it justice, as it was in Judaistic tradition, eye for eye, this is justice? Or is it mercy, like وَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ سَيِّئَةٌ مِثْلُهَا? If you give the counterpart, if you recompense an evil with an evil, it is also evil. So this is not justice. So my contention, I have several articles about justice and mercy. Which one is the first? Which one has to replace which one? Mercy or justice? When we discuss mercy in any case, has to replace justice. This in many verses, if we discuss in Q&A session, we can give some examples. So first, methodologically speaking, a guiding principle to my understanding is mercy, or Wud. Al-Wadud, the name, the special name of God as Wadud, has to be used in order to give the color of the interpretation of the Quranic verses. So mostly I will give in detail. Actually, I have an article published in our journal Qadar, which is titled "The Nature of Mercy and How It Manifests Itself in Many Areas." This was, as some colleagues will remember, in 2016 was declared as the Year of Mercy by Vatican, and they invited me to present a piece about how Islam observe love in human interactions, that is in horizontal level, or how it sees the love or mercy between God and the creatures, between creator and the created beings. This is the vertical dimension. So this article of mine, which I published in the Qadar journal, it is the presentation I made in Vatican City. So I wanted to announce it, for the colleagues who want to read in detail. Just in the beginning, I want to give some terms like hub and vedud, and later on I will come to mercy. Mahabbat in Arabic or hub, it is just a tendency. It is just a tendency. If you take a look at Kindi or Al-Farabi, you can see the details. It is an organizing principle. Yes, Kelly, I can attach my article to. Kelly is asking me to attach the article. I will do it. These philosophers, they first take these principles as a organizing principle in society, especially Farabi. Farabi claims, as Fusul in his Fusul al-Madani, al-Madinatul Fadila, because he wants to create a merciful, not just justice, a society which is living with justice. No, he says an organizing principle in the structure of society is not justice, it is mercy, it is love, it is mahabba. But two distinct dimension is to be set here. Hub, like hububat, it is just seed, it is germ, it is just a tendency. Mahabbat, hub, is just a tendency. It doesn't require you to act accordingly. It is inside you. And hubbuka, I love you, okay? It is inside you. If you manifest your love, if you come closer to your lover, for example, if you like to do something, it is a tendency. But if you take out this tendency and activate it, it is not just a potentiality, you actualize it, then it is wud. So wud is not just vedud. That means in the Quran we have this as a conjunction or as a verb. We have wallahu yuhibbu, wallahu la yuhibbu. God loves or God doesn't love. That is okay, but we don't have a name. We don't have a name like a derivative form of hub or ahabba yuhibbu. Why we have Vedud? Because God is not just has the potential form of giving or creating. That means he is a giver, he is giving. He is not just this potentiality. God is, at the same time, God is giving. God is, at the same time, God is creating, God is sustaining, God is forgiving. So just remember a hadith, a narration from the Prophet, peace be upon him, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. That means like God, like God. If you have something, an emotion, a sense, don't keep it just as potential. Actualize it. The theory doesn't feed people. You have to practically transfer it into real life. So Al-Wadud, the name Al-Wadud, necessarily requiring this analysis from Ghazali. Al-Wadud requires God forgiving. In the verse we have, let me try to find in Surah Buruj and Hud, وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ إِنَّ رَبِّي رَحِيمٌ وَدُودٌ. وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ ثُمَّ تُوبُوا إِلَيْهِ. You seek forgiveness of God. Seek forgiveness of God of you after you committing a sin. Seek the forgiveness. Why? Because he is Wadud. That means to be Wadud requires God to forgive those who committed a sin. So Wadud, or God's being merciful, requires him to actuate, to be part of the actual life. And so if there is an imitation, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, it is a way of life, it's a modeling for those who want to create an ethical world. Maybe this ethical world, a categorical ethics or theological, teleological ethics, it doesn't matter here. But finally, an emotion is creating an ethical world. This is important. The imitation is here. God is, that means Allahu, hu Allahu, God is. But that doesn't matter. Something else follows this reality. It is, God is sustaining, God is forgiving, God is so. Any believer must imitate God's way of acting. The second methodologically, I wanted to state two things I told. One is I mentioned it. The second one is there is a rule called asyndetonism. Asyndetonism, that means there is no copula, wow, between the names of God. Let me give you, you will remember, most of you will remember from the Quran, Wallahul Khaliqul Bari'ul Musawwiru. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rahmanir Rahim. Not Rahman wa Rahim. Rahmanir Rahim. So there is no wow between the names, 99 names of God. This is called asyndetonism. So this requires us, at least it requires us to determine how to organize all these names of God. Which one is, I mentioned you Dawood al-Kaysari. He says we have 99 names, and the mercy, Rahim, the mercy, the Rahim, is the leader. That means without considering Rahim, without considering love, you cannot interpret Aziz. So the beautiful names of God, the majestic names of God, and the perfect names of God, at least three categories we have in the history, theology, I mean. So Celal, Cemal, ve Kemal. The beautiful, the beauty, the majesty, and the perfection. So when we are asked, Azizun Zuntiqam, God is taking revenge. So when we leave aside mercy, we cannot talk about Azizun Zuntiqam. We have to consider all these names together because they signify only one thing. It is God. This is Tawheed. Tawheed, or unity in the names. So God as loving person, if you leave aside, if you forget this loving characteristic of God, this merciful characteristic of God, then you can say Quran includes many things which is totally against the conception of God. How God tells something like that? Don't forget. You forget one principle. This is guiding principle. Asindetonism. Without rahmeh, without mercy, you cannot interpret anything. So this verse from the Quran, it says, my people, the people are asking about me. Who is God? Tell them, God is one whose love, whose mercy encapsulates everything. Vesiat rahmeti kulle şeyin. So, the second question, maybe after stating this verse, we have to determine, it's a good question. We have to ask how this mercy, how God's mercy manifests itself in creation, in human interaction, or between God and me, for example. So very simply, philosophers say the fact that God bestowed reason to think about for the hukama and ulama, not for ordinary people. That is really interesting. The fact that God bestowed reason to philosophers, to hukama and ulama, is because of his mercy, and the fact that God sent revelation to ordinary people is also because of his mercy. So not only revelation, the distinction is important. The distinction, because according to chapter Nisa, verse 83, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ. If there was no the bounty of God, the mercy of God to you, most of you would go astray. Only a few of you would find the correct way. This is the verse. Following from this verse, scholars ask the question: what is the mercy? What is the fadl, virtue here? Then the mercy is that God, before revelation, before the prophet was sent to humanity, God gives fitra, God gives reason through which we can find our true path. This is because he is merciful, and as a sign of his mercy, he gives this reason. if you are not able to exercise your reason and find your way, because those who are not able to use their reason to find, to discover the realities, they are called not hukama or ulama. They are ordinary people, okay? They need a teacher to be educated. So this is ordinary people, and to send them prophet is also because of the mercy. The tradition, Islamic tradition, this kind of distinction is really interesting. For philosophers, not revelation is mercy. For hukama, reason is mercy, but for ordinary people, the second is mercy. So there is one by one. I want to from my article. I want to mention the first one I mentioned you is mercy. What is mercy? How God's mercy manifests itself. The first one I mentioned is revelation and his bestowing reason to humankind. The second one, mercy is this is the golden rule of avoiding conflicts. Rule of mercy, I call it rule of mercy, and mostly if you take the Quranic translations, Turkish Qurans, I mean, 99 of these Quran translations, you will find, I many times repeat these arguments of mine. Ve ceza'u seyyi'etin seyyi'etun misluha. You can translate this verse into Turkish in two different and totally against each other ways. Ve ceza'u seyyi'etin seyyi'etun misluha. To recompense an evil is an equal evil, not more than. If someone beat you, you can beat him also, but not more than. This is the translation. But I say mercy, if we take mercy as a guiding principle when we approach to the Quran, when we comment on him, when we try to understand the text, then this translation is not the correct translation. That means to beat someone who beat you is also evil, because if you bring these two evils, it doesn't create a good result for us. So this mercy, we have to imbue, we have to make it part of our mind, we have to make it part of our actions, and we have to make it a rule for everything. So this is the second thing. I gave many examples also from the Quran. Mercy, another one, mercy is the principle of hope. What I mean from this principle of hope, even that is really when I study this mercy subject, when I come across this interesting point, it was surprising, and I was surprised really. Just make an analogy, I say, if someone betrays us, or if he makes a mistake, then we forgive him. That is okay. He comes back and he feels sorry, and we say, okay, I forgive you. That is it. But we are not able still loving him. We forgive him, but we lose our heart. We lose our love towards him. That is the case. But as for God, in many verses we can observe in the Quran, Even those who left Islam, irtaddu, they left Islam as a religion. When they come back, when they feel sorry, God forgave them, but not just forgiving them. At the same time, he still loves them. So this is another modeling. Maybe he wants us to add something new to our normal life, to live life on an upper level, to raise the life in an upper level. That means not just forgiving, but still trying to love, even though he made many mistakes against us. So this is also تخلقوا بأخلاق الله. This could be also another imitation and modeling. Okay, I am trying to sum up, and very fast. I will give you within 2 or 3 minutes. I will conclude, inshallah. Another principle I wanted to underline is mercy is in Ma'idah and in other chapters. This is very much debated and talked in. This is about fate, or the fate of those who went, who gained the hell as the final destination. What will happen? What will happen? Those people who committed sin and they wasted their life in vain, and finally they have this destination as a fire. So the discussion is that if God is merciful by himself, and if he is giving penalty not just because of himself, but because some people made mistakes and they desired it, so will the fire be ended, or it will continue everlastingly? Interestingly, Ibn Taymiyyah, Jahiz, Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, all these theologians, when they discuss the matter whether the hellfire is everlastingly continue or will be finished, that means the hellfire will lasting.
Dr. Shaban, can you hear us?
We require the actions, the penalty finish. The hellfire will continue, but the penalty will finish. Why? Because of God's mercy. So they bind the mercy principle also to solve this theological issue, these three theologians. So from the beginning, irrespective of which term, hope, vedud, mercy, we take, it takes us to the conception of God, which is Jamal, beauty, with his majesty, his Jalal, and with his Kamal, his perfection, requires him to think this way. Under this mercy principle, we have to try to understand, to see everything. Otherwise, the world we are living in, we are not sharing. It is very, egotism is with its various forms are dominating us. Otherwise, we will content with a life we are in now. Personally, I am not content with this life. So we have to seek, search a better life. And for a better life, the guiding principle seems, without hesitation, mercy, love, wud, or mahabba. Thank you, Shoaib.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaban, for that very conclusive presentation. So we're just going to now carry on with the Q&A session. And if you're going to ask questions, please specify if it's for one or if it's for both of them. And if possible, can you restrict it to just a few seconds so we can hopefully go through as many questions as possible. So I had a few questions for the two of you just to get things started while others can type in their questions. We'll start off with you, Kelly. So given that we have a lot of stereotyping, we have a lot of Islamophobic movements. To what extent can these dialogues help invigorate and remove those misconceptions? Because we've been doing interreligious dialogue for a very long time, right? It's not something that's just started fresh off the boat. Is this something that's just we're adding to, maybe a dead horse, or is there something different that we're doing that can hopefully change the landscape?
That's a good question, Shoaib. My own view is that there's not nearly enough of it that goes on, because you and I get along great, like we got along like that. And I think a lot of people would get along great with you if they had a chance to meet you, but not that many get to meet you. And as you know, people came to, I met Mehmet and Shoaib, I think it was in Amman, and there were American Christian graduate students who came over, and they met their first Muslim. And well, they're Muslims in their city, but they hadn't met one. And some of them, we went to a mosque. It was their first time they'd ever been in a mosque. So my own view is we need a lot more. And books aren't the best way to do it, but maybe a book can attract people. Like my hope is that we'll get some foundations to fund a project where we bring Muslims, Christians, and Jews together to talk at a popular level, and give people a chance that don't usually get the chance to meet, and just try to get more people to meet one another. We're going to learn about love. I think our traditions need to recapture love. I think a lot of traditions are acting out of fear, especially my Christian tradition is acting out of fear. And fear is the most powerful motivation, way more powerful than love. And when our hearts are full of fear, there isn't room in them for love. So we have to find ways to reduce fear. And the only way I know to do it is to bring people together and get people to talk. That is the only way I know how to do it. And start to see that other human beings are worthy of respect, and then sort of work our way up to love. I can start to tolerate them a little bit, and then maybe work our way up to genuine affection and love. So I just think there's not nearly enough. And what happens is often really abstract, like leaders come together and they write proposals and 150 people sign it, like world leaders sign the Charter of Compassion or something. Well, it just doesn't do any good. It can't be top down. It's got to be, all of us in the bottom working up and transforming lives down here.
Dr. Shaban, this actually leads me perfectly to you. You mentioned that you were discussing with NATO. You also had a chance to speak at the Vatican about Saint Nursi. So given that you're working on a very elite level, a very political level, do you see that this is influencing perhaps this, the Islamophobia that we see today? Is it helping the landscape?
Actually, I didn't have the opportunity of checking whether this has an echo in political agenda of these politicians. But I know some books published in France, like the French Intifada, for example, the French Intifada. These books, when it was published in France, it triggered many scares of the people about Islam. So they in Europe, they started discussing the future of Europe. We are discussing, we are debating the future of Islam in Europe, and they are discussing the future of Europe within Islam. So, recently, French president has opened a new discussion. There are two options. There are two options. We are talking about French republicanism in 1905. Which created the laïcité, the norm of laïcité in France. It divides in 1905. It divides, laïcité gives the priority to state to control religion. But this control is very elastic control, so it can be tolerated. But now they want Muslims not to be part of this 1905. They want to go back to 1901, which requires very, very strict controls on religion, on the religious people, preachers itself. They want to control everything. Why? So it seems, at least in France so far, there was some effort to some extent to create an effect on the politicians, but it seems some unwanted and desirable events like these killings and some other evils, they created a very serious image. Very negative image of Islam and Muslims. I compare this situation to what happened in Germany before the Holocaust. This is for 10 years in Germany. Germans created a new cartoon journal, which was called Der Stürmer, the Stormer. Der Stürmer. They published this cartoon for 10 years, and they generated the image of Jews in Germany. Historically, they made up many historical stories generating Jewish people. And when they started killing these Jewish people after these 10 years propaganda against them, nobody intervened, nobody resisted, because they believed that they deserved that. So to my understanding, when I very frequently visit European countries when we hold panels and some other activities there, as far as I see, similar degeneration is being on the agenda now against Muslim. I don't want to generalize it, but in some countries, this is the case, unfortunately.
All right, thank you very much. We have a few questions for both. Enes, do you want to take your shot at asking the questions to the two profs?
So thank you very much. It was really nice talk, both of them. My question is a little bit more technical. So there is a debate among some Christian philosophers, like they claim that what precisely Kelly told, that Islamic God is not all loving because he doesn't love the sinners. So they usually quote some verses from the Quran. So my question is this: what do you think about this question? In the sense, do you think that Christian God is all loving? Do you think that Muslim God is all loving? And does this really matter much, whether God is all loving, or how do you read this discussion? So that's the question.
I'll just say something really quickly first, because I would like to hear what Muslims say. I don't want to misrepresent the Islamic tradition. And I'm writing a book on this, Shaban. That's why and I already have part of a draft on the Islamic tradition. But then some people tell me that in Islam, it says that God doesn't love sinners. And in Christianity, it's, I think, pretty clear that God does love sinners. Although, interestingly, Enes, I think a lot of the sort of stereotypically the forms of Christianity that are sort of stereotypically most like the most determinist forms of Islam don't think that God loves sinners. Like God has determined from all eternity who will end in heaven and who will end in hell. Like Calvinism is what I'm talking about. And I think a lot of Calvinists don't think that God really loves sinners. They got a kind of grace. You know, it says the sun shines on both the just and the unjust. There's a sort of general love that they get, but that ends at the end of life, and then they just go into hell forever. And my guess is there are probably really sort of deterministic forms of Islam where you find the same thing. God doesn't really love the people who end up in hell. In fact, he's determined who will end up in hell. I don't care for that view myself, and I think there are a lot of misreadings of scripture along those lines. And I think it matters in two senses. One is I think people need to, I think it's good for people to have hope that they can get forgiveness and not sort of worry that from all eternity, God has chosen that they would end up in hell. I think that's a vicious view of God for one thing, but I think people need to actually have hope. I think it's demoralizing to think that you personally may not have hope. And the other is I think that people, want to love like God loves. And what happens when we go to war is we try to make it sound like we're on God's side somehow in killing other human beings. And if we can think God doesn't love these other human beings, then God is really on our side. These aren't really, they're not lovable. The things we're killing aren't lovable. They're not really full items of respect or honor. It makes it easier for us to harm or minimally to ignore, but maximally even to kill people that we think God looks down on in some way or another. So I think it's important. But I would love to hear Şaban and others what they think about the claim, and many Christians cite this in their love wars, that is in Islam it said God doesn't love sinners. He only loves good people.
Dr. Şaban?
Thank you, Kelly, for kicking the the question to me also.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the question of Enes, I'm sorry, and this is a technical question. So I want to give him a technical answer. The question is, let's ask the question, whether the God's love is conditional or not. Conditional or not. Likewise, if you love me, I also love you. This is conditional if you love me. So I discussed this matter in my article. God forgives, but when he requires from these people to do something before this forgiveness, then this is conditional. It seems to create that is very sensible, reasonable, and understandable. All from the beginning to at least I want to understand this way. From the beginning to the end, the Quran is an ethical agenda. It contains an ethics, okay? This is this sometimes a teleological ethics. It puts the paradise, the heaven as a goal, okay? This is the telos. So if you want to win paradise, you have to create a paradise in this world. So in order to create this world, an ethical world, it requires to give some conditionality, to put some conditions. So many verses in the Quran, let me repeat the question. If God's love is conditional or without any condition, he forgives, okay? Whatever you do, whichever since you bring God, it doesn't matter, he can forgive you. Here in this world, it seems, as far as I discovered from the verses I analyzed, it seems in this world it is conditional, because some people without penalty, they don't come to point, okay? But as for the hereafter, as I mentioned, whether the debate, whether the fire, hell is eternal or not, it seems unconditionally, he will forgive every sinner, it seems. So if we divide, personally, I want God to be conditional God in this world, because God is, I remember a verse, how you think God, this is a narration, this is a hadith, saying of the prophet, how you think God is this way, how you think. So if you accept yourself a merciful person, you think God is a merciful, but not everybody in this world merciful. There are many people, God warns us against these people. So it seems conditional. God, if they deserve to be forgiven, God forgives them, otherwise, no. But in the hereafter, this is not the case. It seems, I share the idea put forward by Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya, Ibn Taymiyyah, and al-Jahiz, that every single person will, their penalty will be ended, and they will sent to, as a result of the mercy, they will sent to heaven. I think this is a satisfying answer, I hope, dear Anis.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shaban. Can you, hang on, who's it? Nazif, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so thanks very much for both speakers. It's very enlightening and different from different perspective. Indeed, my question is Dr. Şaban, but it may extend also to Kelly's presentation. The point I have in my mind, which needs to be extended, is the relation between the different names of God. How to maintain a balanced relation between different names of God, because both speakers emphasize the role of mercy and law of God. And indeed, I think Dr. Şaban referred to Davud al-Kayseri by saying that mercy is the guiding name of all the other names. But consider different cases. For example, when we consider a baby, when a baby is born, we immediately refer to the law and mercy and think about God's beautiful names. But when we consider somebody died, we consider, for example, God's majestic names, okay? So there is a difference between cases. Some names dominate the others in different cases, it seems. And especially related to Enis's question, when people in this world behave in various ways, some names seems to be going up and some names going behind the others when we consider a specific issue. For example, consider somebody killed somebody or somebody stole somebody from somebody else. These things, it seems to be punished somehow, but in this world, some cases are left unpunished. And it seems that so God will punish them in the afterlife in certain ways. This is very clear in the Quran, but maybe Kelly also add on this point whether Christianity has a definite ways of punishment for those types of activities in the afterlife. So the question is, how should we understand a balanced relation between justice and mercy here? it seems that even the Islamic philosophers, when they are talking about a just society or peaceful society, and most of them underline the importance of love, like Tusi and the Kanalizade, etc. However, they said this is not enough because people kill each other in this world. We need justice primarily and foremost, and mercy is additional to that. Do you see my point? And this is why Islam puts a finger on the afterlife, because many people leave this world without having the required punishment after violating the rights of many other people. Do you think, Dr. Şaban, mercy or love of God is the primary guiding name of the other names, or like the Maturidists emphasize, hikmah or wisdom of God is the primary guiding attribute of that? Because in certain cases, some names become apparent, like justice. In certain other cases, some other names become apparent, like mercy. And which name is most suitable to which case is decided by divine hikmah or wisdom, it seems. Do you agree with this interpretation or not? What do you think about this balanced relationship between names? Thank you very much for everybody.
I take your question, very serious question. So my research assistant, Tuğba Öztürk, is preparing a PhD thesis on Ibn Hazm and how he interpreted the names of God within the context of Andalusian theology. So now we are on our way to prepare this thesis and to see the results, how a great commentator, a great scholar, Ibn Hazm, commented on these names. So one important article of mine discussing it is also published. It is mercy as the replacement of justice. So my whole point is that there are different strata of societies. One society can be content with living with penalties. Okay, everybody is. This is a standard. Let me give you one example. Everybody knows this example. When someone kills your relative, your father, there are options in the Quran. There are options. Someone killed your father, and the Quran gives you options. You will ask from the state to kill this homicide, okay, this killer, or you can. No, I need compensation. Okay, he will give me some sum of money, and I will forgive him. Or without giving any penalty or without giving any compensation, you say, "I forgive you," and God proposes you. God recommends you to forgive him. Now there are three options. That means the three kinds of society. The first society is content with giving penalties. That is okay. That is the side of justice, eye for eye. The second, I don't want him to be killed. I just want to compensation. Tell him, give me money. Okay, this is another society. And the third one, which the Quran, which is the this is the, it seems, at least now from the 21st century's perspective, it seems like an utopia. Really, yeah, like an utopia. You forgive. This it seems very, very far away from the point we analyze the issue. But the Quran, that means create a society which everybody's heart is free from every anger towards each other. Just remember the picture depicted in the Quran. It says, in the paradise, every single person's heart is free from every kind of anger, from each other, towards each other, okay? Nobody has any issue with anyone else. I told something similar to this analogy. I told you, God wants us, asks us to create a similar paradise here in this world. So, and you rightly underpinned one point, very important. If there is not an effective law, you cannot talk about law. So there are many other instruments which require us, like responsibility, taqwa, responsibility. So every single person must take him responsible for everything going wrong, okay? This kind of, if there is something wrong, of course, you have to take the issue to the court. That doesn't mean mercy will solve everything. In our personal relations, this is the key point of mine. In our personal relations, if we keep the mercy alive, we don't need law. This is the issue. Otherwise, that doesn't mean we don't need an effective system. So just to sum up, ethical, if there is no any law, religion, mostly we are talking about ethics. Ethics does not work as an instrument if there is no any law. So I say the clothing of ethics is law. So din, when we say din, religare in Latin, religare, that means you have to regulate. You have to regulate. Just otherwise, this is the last point. This is the difference, if you ask me. This is the difference between philosophers and prophets. Philosophers are just creating terms, creating this terminology we are talking about, but prophets, at the same time, they are transferring all what we have in mind, what we have in our heart into real life. This could be law, this could be law. It doesn't make sense. Okay, thank you for the question.
And what do you think about wisdom as the ultimate guiding principle?
Yeah, this is the key term in Maturidi tradition. Maturidi, we call him wisdom philosopher. Actually, this is a theological issue. We take the wisdom as totally against the Ash'ari tradition, which takes the will of God as the essential term in their system. So when we take the will of God, that a will that dominates everything, including human free will, when we take wisdom as a key term, that means everything you are trying to understand, including God's actions, has a reasonable, as a sensible base. So you cannot say that is God's action, we cannot question him. No, this is not the case. So this is very transparent if you take the wisdom as a guiding principle in the cosmological system or in ontology, in ethics. That means there is a transparent system, there is a direct communication, ontological, cosmological, between God and humankind. So this transparency makes us or enforces us to be part of the system, not just weaver, not just observer, as the creator, as the maker of the system. So this is, thank you for reminding me again the term wisdom. Especially, for years I have been studying on Maturidi, and I call him the wisdom philosopher, or the philosopher of wisdom. Nobody else concentrated of the term more than Maturidi.
Thank you, Dr. Şaban. But Teli, do you want to comment on the question?
I'll just say what I say to Christians about this. What Christians act like is that it's all love, and then like the law doesn't matter anymore. And you might have noticed in my case, I talked about that law is grounded in love, and that the gospel includes law a lot, but a lot of Christians act like we're just sort of freed from the law. Well, there's one sense in which we are, and the sense is this: if we've been totally transformed, as Shaban said, in the sort of utopian society, totally transformed so where our ego is completely gone and we're totally loving, well, then I think law is irrelevant. We'll just instinctively do what we would call just, but we're not there. We're not even close. And I think the Gospels are pretty concerned that people not separate justice from love. I think the deeper name, I guess, and the deeper attribute in the Christian tradition is always love, but it's not at the, it doesn't mean the absence of justice or law or morality. And that's the way a lot of Christians put it. So I'm going to write things Christians feel really uncomfortable about. I think there are a lot of things in the Gospels, especially Matthew, Mark, and Luke, that are a lot like what you find in the Quran. And so I think Christians misunderstand their tradition and what they think it means, what grace means. And they want to completely disconnect it from Judaism, which there's a lot about law in Judaism. Well, I think there's a lot about law in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I think there's a lot about law in the Quran. And I'm not going to try to put it together for every tradition. I'm going to suggest that people should be inspired to do that in their own traditions. But I'm going to say a little bit about it in the book that I'm working on.
Thanks very much.
Shoaib, one thing very good. That is, Kelly told us law is grounded in the law. That is a great, good point. Just one thing I want to add. When Thomas Jefferson, they came together to create some norms for American society in the beginning. They brought all holy books also. Torah, New Testament, the Quran, especially the Sales translation of the Quran was on the table. Thomas Jefferson, they opened, and the Roman law also was there. They tried to find some norms from the Quran. They analyze it. There is an article, if you like, from J. Sutor, you can find how Thomas Jefferson read the Quran. There is an article titled in this way. You can find on the internet how Thomas Jefferson read the Quran. Because they needed some norms, some laws, etc. But what I want to underline, what we need to take from the Quran is not norms or laws. So I am underlining the fact that what we need is the guiding principles. Accordingly, we will create our norms, because you cannot find every norm that will shed light on your life. It is not possible. You can find some, but not many, not everything. So let's determine which guiding principle will be the essential one in our life. I say mercy. Secondly will come justice and others. So at least I wanted to draw your attention to this point again. Values and norms. The distinction between these two, very clear, the values and norms. We have to take out values from the Quran and we have to create our norms. These norms apply to the 21st century this way, and 500 years later in another way. Okay, thank you for allowing me to make this extra contribution.
Hey, before anyone else leaves, would people mind turning on their videos so I can take a quick screenshot of the people who are here today? Ali? Hassan, are you awake? Ali, are you awake? Tugba? Gulsum? I think a few people fell asleep, but our audience our numbers are way down. Elias, are you there? Do we get to see you?
İlyas hocam kameranızı açabilirsiniz.
Am I pronouncing names wrong? There's somebody. Thank you. Oh, look at that. There's two people there.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you very much for your good speech.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Just I would like to ask you something about why is love necessary for all religion? Is it necessary?
Give a smile. One more smile. Got it. Okay. Too many blank spaces. Sorry. Go ahead, Hassan. Oh, Ilyas just showed up. Now he's here. All right. Let's try one more time. Anybody else going to come? Gulsum, Ali, Busra? Come on. Quickly. All right. Oh, there's somebody. Tugba. Oh, there's a person. There's Ali. Sorry to wake you up, Ali. My bad. Mehmet, is it Sarif? How do you pronounce that one? Sarif?
Düşünmemiştim ama bence olabilir.
Şerifenur Demirci.
Anlat bakalım. Şef, balığın altına da birazcık koydum. Yanlarda da.
Don't leave. All right, everyone give me a look. Give me a smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. There's Tuba. Oh, she's back. All right, she's back. Let's try again. All right. Tuba, give us a good smile. We're doing this for you. Got it.
Ben dinliyorum. Söyle dinliyorum.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Did we lose Shoaib?
Okay, Shoaib,
I think
Where
it's
is
gone.
Shoaib?
are we still on broadcasting or we are finishing?
I think he's having some connection problems.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
it's better for me to quit. Today is the day before Christmas and I still have to go and do a few things. So is it okay, everybody, if we quit before we go down to 0? We're on our way down anyway. We had like 40 people and now we're down to 17. So
So could you close the seminar as a moderator, please? Maybe you can.
who?
You. I mean,
Me? I'm not the moderator. I'm the special guest today, Mehmet.
yeah, this is the last program of.
I'm waiting for your big fat check for my my presentation. Me and Shaban. Hey, everybody, let's promise this in love that we'll see each other face to face soon after COVID. Okay, I cannot wait to come to Turkey and see my Turkish friends again, and I'll bring some friends, and we'll build some love bridges when I come. Deal? All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for the contribution.
You too. Good to see you again.